Most people believe they are in control of their lives. They believe their actions are intentional, that their decisions are their own, and that their path is something they consciously choose. But if you observe closely, something very different becomes clear. Most people are not in control at all. They are being controlled quietly and constantly by their habits, by their emotions, and by impulses they never learned to question. And the most dangerous part is not the lack of control itself. It's the illusion of control. Because when you think you are in charge, you stop questioning your behavior. You stop observing your patterns. You stop improving. You wake up, you reach for your phone. You delay what matters, and you repeat the same routine every day without ever asking yourself why. If this feels familiar, then don't ignore it. Stay with it for a moment. Because what we're talking about is not comfortable, but it is necessary. And if you are willing to face it honestly, it can change everything about the way you think and act. Self-control is not something you claim. It is something you demonstrate, especially in moments where it would be easier not to. It shows itself in the quiet decisions, in the unseen choices, in the seconds where you could give in, but you don't. And that is exactly where most people fail, not because they lack intelligence, but because they follow their feelings. When they feel tired, they stop. When they feel unmotivated, they delay. When they feel uncomfortable, they escape. And over time, without even realizing it, their entire life becomes a reaction to how they feel in the moment, not a result of what they decided, but a reflection of their emotional state. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your mind has power over itself, but only if you use it. Most people don't. They hand that power away to distractions, to comfort, to temporary pleasure, and then they wonder why nothing changes. Another sign appears in something even more common. You delay what you know you should do. You know the task. You know the responsibility. You know exactly what matters. But instead of acting, you wait. You tell yourself that you will do it later, or tomorrow, or when you feel ready. And each time you do that, something subtle happens. You weaken your discipline. You train your mind to avoid effort. And over time, this becomes your default behavior. Seneca warned about this clearly. He said that while we delay, life passes, not slowly, but constantly. Every moment you postpone action is a moment that is gone forever, and deep down, you feel it. That slight pressure, that quiet discomfort, that sense that you are not doing what you should be doing, but instead of acting, you ignore it. And that is where control is lost. Another sign reveals itself in how you respond to difficulty. When something becomes hard, your first instinct is to move away from it. Not necessarily immediately, but gradually. You lose focus, your interest fades, and you begin to look for something easier, something more comfortable, something that requires less effort. And in that moment, you tell yourself, it's fine. You justify it. You convince yourself that you'll come back to it later, but you rarely do. What most people don't realize is that growth begins exactly where comfort ends. The moment something becomes difficult is the moment it becomes valuable. And if you consistently avoid that moment, you prevent yourself from growing. The Stoics did not run from discomfort. They leaned into it, not because they enjoyed it, but because they understood its purpose. Discomfort is not there to stop you. It is there to strengthen you. And if you learn to face it instead of avoiding it, you develop a level of control that most people never reach. This becomes even more visible in your reactions. Someone says something disrespectful and you respond immediately. Something goes wrong and you react without thinking. There is no pause, no reflection, just instant reaction. That lack of pause is the absence of control, because control exists in that small space between what happens and how you respond. It is a very small space, often just a second, but it changes everything. Most people never use it. They skip it entirely. They react automatically based on habit, based on emotion, based on impulse, and because of that, they become predictable. Easy to trigger, easy to manipulate, easy to control. Strong minds are different. They pause, even if only briefly. And in that pause, they choose their response instead of reacting to it. That is what makes them stable. That is what makes them difficult to control. Take a moment and think about your own behavior throughout the day. How often do you react without thinking? How often do you choose comfort instead of discipline? How often do you delay what you know matters most? These are not small things. These are patterns. And patterns shape your life. If you continue repeating them, nothing will change. Not your results, not your mindset, not your direction. And that is the truth most people avoid. They want change without changing their behavior. They want results without discipline. But that is not how it works. You either build control or you remain controlled. There is no middle ground. And perhaps the hardest truth of all is this: no one is coming to fix it for you. No one is going to force you to change. No one is going to step in and take control of your life on your behalf. It is entirely your responsibility. And the moment you accept that, everything becomes clear. There are no more excuses, no more distractions, no more ways to avoid the truth. There is only you and your decisions. Every moment gives you a choice. You can act or you can delay. You can take control or you can give it away. Most people give it away not because they want to, but because they never learned how to do otherwise. But you can learn. You can start small. You don't need to change everything at once. You just need one moment where you choose discipline instead of comfort. One moment where you act instead of waiting. One moment where you pause instead of reacting. That is how it begins. And over time, those moments grow. They become habits. They become part of who you are. Until one day, you notice that something has changed. You are calmer, more focused, more in control. Not because it happened suddenly, but because you built it. Because you faced discomfort instead of avoiding it. Because you acted when it was difficult. Because you chose control again and again. That is the difference. Not talent, not luck, not external conditions. Just control. Before you leave, take one more moment. Not to scroll, not to move on, but to decide. Decide what kind of mind you want to have. And if you're serious about it, write it down in the comments. I choose control. Not as motivation, but as a decision. And if you want more content that challenges you, that forces you to think differently, and that pushes you beyond comfort, then subscribe. Because this is not about feeling good for a moment. It's about becoming stronger for a lifetime.